It's a different world, folks. So how do you get good at trading $500 per tick in Forex? How do you get good at $2,000 a handle in S&P futures? You don't do it by having more money in a funded account. Just because you have the margin to be able to do those types of things doesn't mean you have the wherewithal and the psychological makeup that has been developed over time doing very little trade, very little margin, very little leverage over time. So you have to condition yourself for that. Nobody just simply learns how to do a simple pattern or approach to trading and goes out there and kills it monetarily, because you have no idea what that impulsive nature feels like when you do a heavily leveraged trade and you make that money. It's a scary and exciting feeling. But then what happens is you have that losing trade because you want to have that fix again. Everybody starts out in this industry the same way. They want to get out of that pressure of stress. They can't make their bills. They can't make their ends meet. But you cannot bring that to trading. You can't. Now, how do you do it soberly? You take the least amount of money in terms of an end or expense each month and make that your target for the month. And you do that for a few months. You're telling me I got to trade and just try to make $300 for the month? Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. And then once you do that, then it's okay. What's the next expense that I can add to it? And you start doing that over time. And you transition from learning a model, which is what you've been doing this year. You all know the model right now. You're still practicing. Maybe you're back testing, maybe you're forward testing. But now some of you are at the stage where, what is it that I'm supposed to be doing with this information? Because I'm ready to start trading with real funds, because you determined that, not because I said you should do it, but you decided that's what you want to do. How do you do it? This is what you do. You go in with this type of target. And if you've been very successful and consistent, maybe it's a matter of picking 3 or 4 of the lowest cost, expense, or end for each month and make that your target goal. The ideal scenario is for you to aim for that top of the list: mortgage, rent, those top 3 things, 4 things. And if you can cover 50% of that, folks, listen, that is a huge weight off of anyone's back. You won't feel suffocated or strangled anymore. And eventually you want to replace the cost of those top 4 things in that list. And over time, completely cover every single month's ends. And then once you can do that consistently, try to aim for doubling that. Once you get to the point where you can double that and you're consistently doing it, then and only then, if you're properly funded, what does that mean? About $100,000. $100,000 or more. Then I think trading for a living is probably considered. But anything prior to that, you're not ready. I guarantee you are not ready. And if you want to challenge me with that idea, come back to me in a year and tell me you did it and prove it. Because I'm going to tell you right now, that won't happen. It won't happen, because you will wreck yourself. You'll do things stupidly. You'll be impulsive, and ends will catch up with you in the negative aspects. They'll cause you to do things irrationally in these markets, and you don't want to do that. You don't really realize it. Maybe you're probably thinking to yourself, wow, I never really considered this, but this is exactly what's the problem. The root cause that everyone wrecking themselves in these markets is because the money is not enough in their personal life. Think about it. That's why this country and every other country around the world, they have medication in the form of alcohol and drugs. Those self-medicating rituals that people put themselves through, that's an escape mechanism. Well, these markets are no different than that. There's no difference between these markets for a new trader that had that impulsive desire to escape the stress and pain of their real life. They go in and self-medicate and they put a trade on because it feels good. Because if it wins, what's that going to do? It's going to cause them to feel that this is the right thing to do, and it felt great for the moment, and that wears off fast. You don't have a headache like a hangover. You don't have withdrawals like with drugs. You have impulsive, chasing, pursuing characteristics that make you want to go back in right away, like it's going to happen to you again in the next 10 minutes. And you want that hit of dopamine, that feel good, I'm doing the right thing. And this is proof that I can escape the rat race faster than anybody else says I can. And that's a trap. That's a pitfall. And I went through that multiple times. And I blew accounts multiple times. It never happens like that, folks. And I know some of you, if you're young and you're male, you're hearing this and you're saying, oh yeah, watch me. I'm going to be the one. I'm telling you, if there was anybody on the planet that was ever going to do it, it would have been me, because I was literally giving everything up. Friends, family, everything was poured into this, and I still could not do it. Because that emotional and psychological impact of having pressure of the real world, making ends meet, those bills, not having enough, that feeling of not having enough, or maybe just not having enough, that's going to force you to do decisions in these charts that are not rational. You're going to abandon the rules. You're going to over leverage. You're going to enter before you should, and or not stick with the model and hold for your profit objectives. Because what? Ends. Not specifically because you're going in and trying to make those ends meet, because you probably never sit down and think, this is how much money my expenses are each month. If I could just go in and take a piece of that from trading, that's progress. Contrast that with, here's this course I'm teaching you, or watch my videos, or buy my course, or come to my workshop and learn how to make 50R, 20R. How does that equate to your ends? These individuals don't know how to make money. They're not making money. I promise you they're not. Because if they did, they would be proving it. And they don't. All I'm trying to do here is be a voice of reason and give you practical ideas how to apply what it is that I've taught you. Because you could still go out there and hurt yourself financially if you don't watch what it is that I'm teaching you here. And guard your mind. Guard it, because it's easy to sit in a demo account and think, well, I don't need to be at my job 6 months from now because I learned this skill set. And you have no idea what it feels like to be trading with a $10,000 account and watch it grow to a $50,000 account, and then trade from a $50,000 to $100,000 equity. That's a growing stage that none of you, if you've never done it, understand what that feels like. And the leverage of putting on large positions versus what you start with. See, most of you are probably looking at these funded account companies out there and thinking, okay, it's only a couple $100 to get that if I pass the challenge, and you just blow it because you're doing what I'm teaching you not to do in this series. You're playing the lottery. So who's the real fool here? Is it the people that work all week and they pour their money into, like tonight, there's a big game out there that's $1 billion. The lottery, Mega Millions, okay? There's people out there that work all week long and they pour money into that kind of stuff. I don't do those things. I don't think that that's a practical approach to using your money wisely. But there's people that do that. Who is more of a fool? Someone that goes out and spends $10 or $50 a month in lottery, or the people that think, I'll save up, put up enough money to get these funded account challenges, a couple $100 here, $600 there, $500, whatever it is, I don't even know. But whatever that is, and you're going in there and you're rolling the dice. Not really doing what it is that you should be doing, thinking soberly about the risk, making sure that you're trying to do everything you can to protect your access to that funded account. That prop firm has rules that you have to stick to. If you don't stick to those rules, what happens? You no longer have access to that account. Now you can argue and say, well, you do really have that money. Well, I'll tell you what happens when a student does these things and they get withdrawals and checks that now they're spending the money. That kind of cancels out any argument whether they have really a $100,000 account or a $50,000 account or a $400,000 account. I'm not here to argue that. That to me is irrelevant. The people that are doing it and getting money from these companies, they're going to be the counterparty to the argument that you really don't have that money. You think these people care whether you think that they have that money or not when they're having checks and withdrawals and that's money that they're actually spending and they have access to? Nobody cares what everybody else is thinking when you're doing it. So I want you to go through your personal finances. I want you to be diligent about writing down everything that you spend and how much money you have coming in. Now, you may have a job like a waitress or a waiter, and you do tips. That's going to be a variable amount. When I used to deliver pizza, and many of you probably don't know this, that are new, but I worked as a pizza delivery guy in the late 80s and early 90s. I managed a Domino's. Those were real jobs that I did. So I came up from that. If you've done things like that, you know that there isn't really any consistent number of what it is you're making, because tips are tips. They're variable. Just get a baseline low end, and then anything above that is just a bonus, okay? But you got to write down what it is that you're having to spend each month and remove those things that you don't need right now. You're not going to miss Netflix. I'm sure you probably have a friend that would lend you access to it, and I'm not saying cheat them, but you know how it is. I know that stuff goes on just like you do. Those things can be trimmed off, okay? Besides, how much time are you pouring into other things that are not going to build you up? If you chose this path for your life, this needs to be second in line next to your family. So it's family and then this, because this is going to require a lot of time learning. It's going to require a lot of energy and effort, and it's going to be a very, very cruel lover. If you do not give it its time that it demands, it will not yield the love and tenderness that you're hoping it will. So hopefully this has been inspiring to you to think about what it is that you're doing and maybe have done to yourself. And I'll be back with you in episode 2 to help you conquer making ends meet.